going to focus on the AESA Science Olympiad, which is in March. However, we do encourage all of our students to take their projects to LA County Fair, to take their projects to the state level, and we can also help you get there as well with more mentoring, with feedback on your projects, etc. And I'd like to note that AESA, we specifically made our Science Olympiad before the LA County so that you can bring your project to AESA, get feedback, have at least 3 to 5 judges review your project, and before you go on to present for LA County, you have the chance to improve your project. And again, we're all here to help you do that. So choosing a topic. Some of you already have your topics ready and you've started on your projects, and that's great. But for those who need help, here are just a few pointers. So the very first step is to just write down 5 things that interest you. This could be anything you like, as long as you are interested in this topic. Next step is to do just a little bit of research into your topics to get a slightly better understanding of it. Then, and this is the hard part, is to narrow down your project down to a specific question, something that you can ask so that you can answer, because that's what science is all about, right? We ask questions and then we try to answer them. And the way you answer your questions in science is through conducting experiments. So the entire goal of this is to help you find a question that interests you and that you can answer with experiments. And again, we will go over this with you one-on-one in more detail. So don't worry if this seems like too little information. Okay. So one thing I do want to focus on, and this can also apply for students who already have their project as well. Your topic should be narrow enough so that it involves experimentation and observational comparisons and data collection. But you want to ask a question that you can answer through experimentation. Right. So we went over the first 2 points already. Ask a specific question, answer with an experiment. And something you want to keep in mind is reagents and tools. Can you actually do the experiment that you want to do? Right, a lot of times reagents, tools, and resources are very limiting. You might want to build something, but you don't have the necessary materials. And I work in a research lab at USC. We have a lot of fancy equipment, but this limitation still applies. So don't feel like, oh, I'm just in a science fair, I don't have the tools that I need. This is a problem that every scientist faces. Sometimes you just don't have the resources or the tools or the reagents to do the experiment that you want to do. So you have to keep this in mind when you are choosing your topic so that you can actually design something that you can do. The next thing that I would like to introduce you to are 2 different types of measurements. So measurements are extremely important in science, and these can be broken down into 2 major parts, qualitative and quantitative. And I have a slide to help describe this for you. So quantitative, like quantity, right? It measures numbers. How many of something do you have? How long is it? Things that you can actually measure. And then you have qualitative data or qualitative observations. And these are things that typically involve the 5 senses. So something feels rougher, something feels smoother, or it tastes sweeter, it tastes less sweet, etc. When you are doing science, it's a lot easier to analyze data that is quantitative, something that you can measure. So when you are choosing a project and designing your experiment, I would urge you to get as much quantitative data as possible, things that you can measure with numbers, right? Things that you can count or measure. Okay. So I'll open it up to questions at the end and keep moving forward if that's okay. So just a few examples of life science projects that we've had over the years. These are some of the successful ones. What is the best way to disinfect a toothbrush? Drinks that will stain those pearly whites. And do different containers affect plant growth? How much bacteria are you drinking? These are just a few examples to get you thinking. I also have a slide on physical sciences. Is there really silver in my watch battery? Which liquid will plants grow best with? The effect of different acids on rate of corrosion, turbine efficiency, and centripetal force in action. Just to give you examples. Some overdone projects that judges are a little tired of seeing. Keep in mind you are making these projects for judges to evaluate. So you really want to keep in mind how the judge is going to react to your project. So if you're showing a project to a judge who's seen this for like 20, 30 times, they are automatically not going to be as interested in this project, right? So cleaning solutions, volcanoes, pendulums, some of the overdone projects. And again, we will help you go through this one-on-one and find a project that is interesting both for you and the judge. Okay, display tips. So this year it's going to be a little bit different, but I still want to go over how you should present your project because this is a very big part of a successful science fair, right? If you do the most wonderful, the most creative and analytical experiment, but you don't display it properly, no one is ever going to find out what you've done. No one's going to appreciate that. So for a typical science fair, pre-COVID, back when we actually had poster boards and all, this is what you want your project to look like. Right? If you can see everything is very clearly labeled, right? You have your project title, results, abstract, introduction, etc. If you have a model, you have it with you, and your log, your scientific notebook, which is very important. Because if you are a true scientist, you should be keeping track of everything you're doing so that if someone else, say 2 years later, wants to repeat the exact same experiment that you did, all they have to do is look at your notebook and they'll know exactly what to do. That's the mark of a true scientist. Okay, so common mistakes. Please avoid these. Again, the judges have seen this like way too many times. Spelling errors, incorrect use of grammar, use of informal style of language. When you are doing these projects, you are training to be a scientist. So you want to speak like one and you want to use the correct style of language, right? You don't want to use colloquial words. Instead, you want to use scientific ones. Messy and cluttered poster boards. If I'm a judge and I'm coming to your poster board and I don't know where to look, I'm just like trying to figure out where the results are, where the introduction is. I'm so confused trying to find the information that I don't even process it right. You really want to avoid that. Inconsistency and reporting efficiency value greater than 100%. This is one of my favorite mistakes, right? When you say something was so efficient, it's over 100%. Like that's just not possible, right? And then no graph, no results, and no units. It's like, if I were to tell you, I'm going to give you, well, okay, I won't go into silly examples right now, but units are extremely important, right? If you are measuring something and you tell me, oh, the length was 3 what? Inches, centimeters, meters, kilometers, this, could change everything. So units are extremely important. And for your graph, this still applies to Zoom presentations as well. Your graphs should be very easy to read and to understand. First thing is you really want to perform your experiment at least 3 times and then average the results. So if I do an experiment just 1 time, I get that 1 result. And if I want to go and present this to the scientific community and I say, look, I did this experiment and I got this result, I am expected to do this experiment at the very least 3 times, make sure that I am getting very similar results those 3 times so that people actually believe my result, right? Because that one time, maybe it was an accident. Maybe you made a mistake that you didn't realize or something. So if you want your project to be strong, repeat the experiment at least 3 times. And if you are putting your results on a graph, please, please, please make sure we have units and we know what we are looking at. So your X and Y axes need to have labels. You see, so this is ampere, you're measuring the current here, and I have the units, it's measured in amps, and you have the voltage here in kilovolts. So I know when I'm reading this graph, I know exactly what I'm looking at, right? I've seen students present graphs without the labels on the X and Y axes, and I don't know what you're presenting to me. So this is very important. And I'm just going to show you 2 examples of very nicely organized projects to give you an example of a good one. So again, everything is very clear. The abstract, you have your problem, the question that the student is trying to answer, the hypothesis, the process here or methods, how you are addressing that problem. You have your results and graphs. And even from here, you can see, oops, sorry about that. Everything is very clearly labeled, and then you have your conclusion. Very easy to follow. And here's another example. Okay. So I'll just dwell on this for a few seconds and move on. Okay, interview tips. How to present your project to a judge. This is equally important. Well, maybe not equally, but it's still very important to talk to the judge and present your project in the best way. So first thing you want to do is place your project into context. What you don't want to do is say, I started putting plants in different types of solutions, and right, that's kind of starting in the middle of your process. What you want to do is say, well, I was curious about how plants grow and what minerals are required in their water to help them grow better. I was wondering that, so I decided to do this experiment, right? You want to kind of make it into a story. You don't want to just have bullet points, make it a story. Pretend like your science experiment is a story that you're telling your friend. Okay? You want to speak clearly. What you don't want to do is just kind of mumble like this and break your eye contact, and right. If it's very hard for the judges to understand you, that doesn't work well so well for you. Right. You want to speak with confidence. The key, I will give you 1 tip to address points 2 and 3. That is to practice. Practice, 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 practice. It is so easy to tell when a student that has not practiced the presentation and when the student has, because when you have practice, when you know exactly what you're going to say, when you know what the context of your experiment is and what you're saying, all of these things kind of come naturally, right? You've practiced, you know what you're going to say, you automatically feel more confident. And you really want to excite your audience about your project. If you don't care about your project, the judges are certainly not going to care. 100%, I guarantee you, if you are not excited by what you have done, no one else is going to be excited, which is why I am encouraging the students, we're all encouraging students, to pick a project that excites you, that you are interested in, right? Because if you are interested, the judges will be interested. It's just better for everyone, right? You have fun doing it. We have fun judging you. You place, we can take you to LA County. So please try to pick a project that you're interested in. Right, if you are excited, the judges are excited. Project evaluation. So what are the judges looking for? Typically, creativity. Did you actually put some thought into this project? Were you creative, or did you just Google, science fair project, the first hit that popped up, and you just kind of repeated something that someone else has done 30 times before? So creativity counts. Scientific approach. And this is something that AESA will help you with to make sure that you are asking the best question and answering it in the best possible way. Comprehension. Do you understand what you have done? This is also one of the more important points. If you don't understand what your project is about, there's no way that you can explain it. It's super obvious. The judges can tell within the first 45 seconds, 1 minute, if you actually know what you're talking about. So, and if you don't understand, that's completely fine. We're here to help you understand it. Just make sure you actually understand what you're doing. And presentation. So we've already discussed this. Now, who is judging you? I can tell you who's going to judge you at the AESA Science Fair or Science Olympiad. We have a lot of our judges hold advanced degrees in their field. So if you are presenting a project in biology, most of the judges either have PhDs in that field or master's degrees. They have been working in this field. They are professionals, right? We try very hard to have judges who are very well qualified to judge your project. We don't just get someone off the street. And a lot of them serve at the LA County and California State Science Fairs too, which is a really good advantage for you because the tips and the advice that these judges give you for this AESA Science Olympiad, you can use that, make your project better, and take it to LA County or the state. All right. So day of Science Olympiad. Unfortunately, this year it's going to be different because we have to hold it virtually. And I think a lot of you have already participated in science fair in the AESA Science Olympiad, but typically we would have students submit their projects. We have some visuals here. So we kind of line up the projects along the desks, and then the judges walk around, the students get to present their projects. We have typically fun games, and then we have an award ceremony. Now, this year, we're going to be hosting our Science Olympiad virtually on Zoom. With that, we've had to change a few of the things. The first one, and this is in bold, and this is in red. Your projects and virtual submissions are due by Wednesday, March 3rd. I'm sure Sona will send this date out many, many times, but here it is for you to have right now. So you want to plan your project accordingly. Again, the more I talk about this, the more you're gonna remember. So Wednesday, March 3rd is when we need your completed project submitted to us. So like I said, we're gonna have it on Zoom. And what we're going to do is invite all of the students. We'll send you a Zoom link and we will put you with the judges. So this time we're going to have all of the judges be there at the same time. If you've participated in the AESA Science Olympiad before, we typically had maybe 1 or 2 judges at the time and they would walk around and alternate. With Zoom, it was a lot easier for us to have all of the judges and for you to present your project once to them all at the same time. So you'll have 15 minutes to present your project and answer their questions. And we will go over this again more as the date comes closer. And with that, okay, I think Mr. Sharajan wants to say something, but he is on mute. Okay, well, until then.
How are they gonna present their work, not their oral presentation? PowerPoint slides?
Yes, that's a very good point. I'm sorry about that. So you'll have a slide deck, just like the one that I'm sharing with you, instead of a poster, because the poster is just too hard to see that over the computer. So instead you'll make a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, are there any questions? So I'm going to end the presentation so we can see each other better. Are there any questions about the Science Olympiad in general, the process, dates, anything that we can address? No. Okay.